So I think what would be helpful to start with is really kind of explain what we can bargain and what the law says regarding healthcare for state employees. So it's very clear in 4180 what we can and can't bargain. What we can bargain is highlighted there on subsection 3, which is the dollar amount expended on behalf of each employee for healthcare benefits, right? So that's the 85-15 split that we currently have and we've had for a while. That means the employer pays 85%, the employee pays 15%. And that figure applies to whatever the premium rates are determined to be by the healthcare authority and the providers, right? And those negotiations are not something the union is a part of or the PEBB is a part of. And really, we have no input into that process. I have some input on the PEBB, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But as a union, we do not get to bargain over, what my prescription is going to cost, or, my deductible is going to be, or what the plan monthly premium is going to be, or any of that stuff is very prohibited, right? And this was kind of part of all the grand bargain when we got collective bargaining, that yes, state employees will now be able to bargain over their wages, benefits, and working conditions. However, not healthcare, right? The only thing we can bargain on healthcare is the dollar amount, and we do bargain hard over that. So you can see also in subsection 2A there, highlighted in the white, is very specifically says the employer is not required to bargain over matters pertaining to healthcare benefits. So just kind of wanted to put that out there to kind of set the stage as to what authority, what ability we have by state law to bargain or not. Further down in RCW 4180, it also requires that we bargain that dollar amount in a coalition. So what happens, all the unions that represent state employees come together in one healthcare coalition, and we bargain together with OFM as the employer. And we do that right along the same cycle as our master contract agreements. So next summer, we'll be bargaining again for the following 2 years. The healthcare calendar is a little bit different than our contract, right? Healthcare calendars, year to year, right? So January to December, whereas, our contracts are by fiscal year and it's July to June. So they don't quite align, but that's how we bargain. So moving on, what did we actually bargain in the last round of bargaining? And this would have been the summer of 22, right? So the 85-15 split remained. We were able to hold the line on that and keep that split for state employees. However, we were able to bargain a change in how that 85-15 split is determined. Previously, in all the years prior, that 85-15 was calculated based on a weighted average of all plans, right? So they would take the very low cost plans and the very high cost plan, everything, and then come up with a weighted average. And that kind of what determined what the 85-15 split would be. And I've got a formula here I'm going to show you here in a minute. But by changing that calculation to now only being the monthly premium for UMP, using that as our threshold and determiner, the number we use to calculate that 85-15 split means employees will be paying less and the employer will be paying more. In fact, not only did we get historic contracts, but we got hundreds and hundreds of millions more in healthcare funding as a result of this calculation split. So really the key sentence here in what we bargained was the new structure for how we determine the rates. And that is the employer medical contribution will be equal to 85% of the monthly premium for the self-insured Uniform Medical Plan Classic. And UMP is the most popular plan by majority, of all state employees. And so it is the most stable. And as you'll see later on, those rates are actually going down for UMP. So that calculation that I was promising you, it might be a little hard to see, so you might have to expand it on your screen. But the top formula example there is what the rate used to be calculated. And you can see using 3 examples of 3 different rates, right? The green, the orange, the blue, A 700, B 725, C 800. Using the old index rate would have mean the state would pay $649 of that. That's the 85%. And then the bottom number is what employees would pay. Using the new calculation and the new way to come up with that index, we call it the EMC, Employer Medical Contribution. You can see using those same figures, the employer is now paying $680 of that same amount, which then brings down the employee premium, excuse me. So just the key points of all of that already is that agreeing to change how the employer contribution is calculated increases the state's contribution overall. And by eliminating the weighted average that included those lower cost plans, the new EMC model will always produce a higher employer contribution than the previous model. And it focuses on the flagship, most popular UMP, which is a nationwide plan, very stable, lowest rates normally. And frankly, everybody I talked to that's in UMP loves it. And like I said, had we bargained this previously, the rates this year would be lower. And it matters of fact, the rates in 24 are lower because of that. Had we not bargained this change, they'd be even higher than they are now, going to be. So moving on, one thing I think is also important is to kind of explain what the current breakdown is of how many people are in each plan. Because I think that's important when we're looking at some of these drastic increases. And these numbers are actually for all state employees that participate in PEBB. And so as the PEBB person representing state employees, that is almost 300,000 that these numbers impact. And these numbers actually also correlate with our WFSI members. So if you stack up the numbers for just WFSI, the percentages are nearly identical. So as you can see, like Kaiser, KP Northwest. And for those that don't know, Northwest Kaiser is only Clark and Cowlitz County, right? It's only 2 counties. Everybody else, every other county is Kaiser Washington, right? KP WA. So just know that. So as you can see for CDHP in Clark and Cowlitz counties, it's 0% of total membership. There's only 642 participating in that plan out of 280,000. And so those numbers for the next one for KP Northwest, still 1%, 3,000. So those are the 2 plans. Those are actually the 3 plans that are getting the highest increases, like triple digits. Kaiser Washington, which covers all the rest of the counties, is a little more popular. But as you can see, if you added up all the UMP, I mean, just UMP Classic alone here, 149,000, that's 53% just by itself, right? So that's majority. But if you add the other UMP options, it adds up to 77%. So 77% of all state employees are participating in some sort of UMP plan, not Kaiser. So that's good news for reasons you'll see later on. So now, cue the music, right? Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think you probably all seen this, for most of the Kaiser plans, they are going up significantly, especially for Kaiser Northwest, which is the Clark and Cowlitz counties. But you also notice that UMP is going down. And this is for subscriber, and spouse, right? The red are negative numbers. So if you're a single person in UMP Classic, you're going to be paying $11 less. But if you're in Kaiser Washington Classic, which is probably the most popular Kaiser plan that affects all counties except those 2, you're going to pay $59 more. It's those poor folks down in Clark and Cowlitz counties that are giving these $159 increases, $170, and it just goes up for family and spouse. So for example, if you got subscriber, spouse, and children, and you're in Clark County participating in Classic, you're getting a $427 increase, which is outrageous. We didn't like it. The PBB didn't like it. In fact, we made the healthcare authority go back 3 additional times to, negotiate with Kaiser and get them as low as possible. But then Kaiser said, this is it. This is all we're going to do, kind of take it or leave it. So I think it's important when the PEB votes to adopt these rates, it's either all or nothing. So we don't get to say no on Kaiser Northwest Classic. We're not going to accept this. If we say no, all it does is pull that option away from employees to choose. It just eliminates the plan, which we could do, and we debated. But The board did not want to take that choice away from employees. We would prefer that they made that choice and, voted with their feet, so to speak, and move away from that plan. And we warned Kaiser many times that thousands of state employees are going to be dumping Kaiser and going into uniform. Kaiser officials come to the board, the PEBB, at one of our meetings and explain these increases. And so all of their chief executives came and explained, similar to, the economy and all of us in general, they are blaming inflation. So inflation, finally caught up to healthcare and Kaiser, but they're also having supply chain disruptions like many, right, that we're all experiencing in different things. But they're also having extreme labor shortages. Now they're having labor issues, right? And they stated there's an increased demand for care, especially during COVID, post-COVID, and provider challenges. So these are how they explained in their words the reason for the increased costs. They also, and it's not on here, as you know, they took over group health a couple of years ago, and that bill is finally coming due for them. They were able to kind of kick it down the road, and that's a lot of facilities, a lot of footprint, a lot of structure that they're now having to pay for. So that's also the reason for these big increases in their healthcare costs. And they're claiming that these healthcare costs are coming for the rest of healthcare providers as well, that for some reason Kaiser is experiencing them before everybody else. I don't know if I believe that, but that's what they're claiming. So we did ask the healthcare authority as the board to schedule and provide additional benefits for members wanting to investigate whether or not they need to change, how to change, helping them with the change. So they're scheduling more benefit fairs than they've been doing recently. So you can see for the first couple of weeks in November, there is more in person than previous years. If you go to their website, the more details are there for like exact location and all that. At the time I made this in August, those things hadn't been decided yet. But so definitely encourage our members to attend an in-person benefit fair if they can. If not, they can also go to the Healthcare Authority website. The link here is in the screen, but they can do a virtual benefit fair 24/7 at home or wherever they want to do it. And there's a lot of good resources for them. I would encourage them to, get a list of their prescriptions and what they're currently costing, any medical things that they have going on now, and ask specific questions. If they're thinking about going to UMP, like, what's this going to cost me? It costs me this now for these prescriptions. What are they going to cost me at UMP? And so really getting that drilled down information and specifics about their plan and what they need for their family. But, November is open enrollment. I would encourage all of you to do as much research and homework as you can, make an educated choice. I'm going to have to do the same thing. And, I suspect next year that we'll have far fewer Kaiser plans to choose from as our employees and members, vote them out, so to speak, by choosing alternates. We're also hoping that we'll have more healthcare providers to choose from rather than just UMP and Kaiser, maybe Premera or Blue Cross or some of the other major healthcare providers out there. Hopefully they'll step up to the plate and have some good plans and prices for state employees as well.